been released recently, the last couple of weeks, either digital product or physical product? Anything new on Netflix or new functionality on Spotify or Amazon Prime?
No, I noticed on Google Maps a new functionality, but I just recently used it because I didn't use it before with events close to you. I love it on Google Maps. I'm currently using only it, for example, for restaurants in Paris. For a long time, I was using other tools, but today with the filters they have, like super easy to use.
Nice.
Okay, Max, we are official live, so let me just say welcome to Scaleup Valley podcast, to our community, your number one source about scaling up. And today is all about scaling product with Max, head of product at Monese from London, Florian, co-founder and CPO at Payfit from Paris, and Tarun, VP Product Marketing at AppNexus from New York. So welcome all. And please, Max, kick off the show. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mary. No, it's brilliant. It's great to have Florian and Tarun here with me today, talking about scaling up and really getting into some of the details. I think this week we're going to focus on execution, really trying to get into how does planning work and how do you translate plan into action, which is always the most difficult thing. A lot of people have ideas, but making those ideas work, that's where the miracles happen. So what I'll do is, my name is Max Eskell. I'm head of products for Monese. We are a challenger bank here in Europe. We're in 31 countries. We've just passed our millionth customer, and we've just launched Apple Pay to all across Europe. So very exciting times here for us. We're growing very fast, and I've got two amazing people that I hope to learn great deals about and share some sort of frustrations and thoughts about scaling. So Tarun, can you introduce yourself and say a bit about AppNexus?
Sure. Hi, my name is Tarun Bhatti. I joined AppNexus around 2 years ago, and late last year we got acquired. So now we have rebranded to Xander. I joined as a VP of product marketing. I'm taking up a new role of customer engagement and customer experience, and how we can improve or scale up overall our product base.
Amazing.
And Xander and AppNexus, we are one of the largest. We provide technology for the buyers and sellers for digital ads.
Okay, brilliant, fantastic. Florian, let's jump in with you.
So hello, my name is Florian Fournier. I am the CPO and co-founder of Payfit. So Payfit, we started in 2016. We provide a payroll and HRIS solution in Europe. So we have more than 3,000 companies in France, Spain, Germany, and England. And so we are today 300 in the company, and we plan to double in size in the next year. And we will open Italy in 2020.
Amazing! What great sort of scale-up stories. You've got quite a large company, 2,000 people that's been acquired. There's going to be really interesting dynamics there for scaling up. Florian, growing like we're planning to grow double in size next year as well. So I'm sure we'll have exciting stories and challenges ahead of us. So what I found is scaling up and learning from each other is a lot about context. There are some lessons that just apply to you, and there's lessons that can apply to other people, but understanding which is all about context. So let's explore our structures of our companies and our size, because then hopefully that will better situate what we talk about. So here at Monese, we've got 10 product teams. They encompass engineers, designers, marketers, product leads, and analysts, all in the teams, and the teams own products, customer-facing financial products, or internal-facing products like fraud. So the team size is between sort of 9 and 12. They're fully dedicated to an area, and to be honest, as much as possible, we try to give them pretty much most of the autonomy in that area. We have a core team which is separate that does all the sort of really hardcore infrastructure stuff, but we find that this is really helpful and allows us to be customer-centric, fast, and very accountable. So it'd be really interesting to see what your design decisions were around your structures and what you feel that gave you first. So Florian, let's go with you. As the founder, you've got, I'm sure this is sort of one of the things you enjoy the most and get involved the most about.
Yeah, completely. So we have something very specific at PayFit. It's we have created our own programmation language for having the possibility to code the payroll complexity in this language. And why have we done that? We have done that in order to give to country teams the possibility to code their law. And so we didn't want them to depend on software engineers, product managers, and product designers' work. We wanted to give them the possibility to code on their own the best payroll solution. So we have created the Jetlang. So we have one part of the product team which is based in each country and which construct the payroll solution. And then we have a more classic architecture with teams working on HRIS features, for example, onboarding, performance review, employee survey, absences, expenses, a mobile app. And so today we have 3 big teams in it. And so one challenge is to construct, an organization to be able to parallelize different growth of the teams.
It's super interesting. I think one of the discussions I enjoy having the most is structures and the trade-offs they give. So you've got 3 quite big teams. Are they just engineers, or do they have other people?
No, so teams with product managers and product designers in them.
Okay, so what most people would call full stack teams, or sort of the Spotify sort of.
So we have the Spotify model for this centralized, for this international organization working on HRIS features or the Jetlang. So we have the tribes and squads, and then we have in each country, these different organizations with Jetlang masters, as we call them, because those people using the language we have created, it's a job we have created at PayFit, which is quite specific. It's super interesting. And so those people, they are not in those tribes and squads for international teams.
That's really interesting. I think we face the same problem. We've currently got our app in 12 different languages, and we're trying to balance what can we build across all markets versus where do we need to go deep in specific markets. And this is one of the things we're struggling with our existing structure, and we're trying to think through that. Yeah, super interesting. So Tarun, tell us more about the structure of the organization.
Yeah, so Xander is a big company. We have thousands of employees, and we have we have 3 business units: buy-side business, sell-side business, and marketplace businesses. And then teams are aligned towards those initiatives. So inside the product, we have those 3 business units, and then you have customer engagement and customer experience business units. Design is part of the product organization as well, and I lead the customer experience and customer engagement overall.
So product design is in product, but customer experience is in marketing, or is that?
No, like I report into product as well.
Okay. Interesting. I think you're seeing there's so many different ways of doing product. I think every different conversation I have, this is why I find these conversations so interesting, is every different conversation you have is a slightly different nuance, which I think is great. So you said you were big, sort of how many? You said like 2,000?
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that the whole organization? Is that customer service and ops, or is that just engineers?
No, that's the whole organization.
Okay. Cool, that's big. So I think one of the things, about getting stuff done, the first thing is to work out what to do. So I think, planning is an essential part of, of getting things done. Bad plan is better than no plan, as General Patton said. So I think we're going to see some really big divergence between sort of our organizations in how they plan. Tarun, let's start with you, because I imagine with a big organization, I think planning would be quite a deliberate process, something done relatively infrequently but very well. Is that true? Or?
Yeah, that's very correct. Like we do our annual plans. At that point of time, we decide what are the company goals, and then work our way backwards towards what are the OKRs for the company. Then from them, what are the OKRs for the departments, and then work for the OKRs for the individuals from there on.
Okay, so it cascades all the way down. So
yes.
So the strategic objectives, then OKRs, and then the OKRs for division or department or whatever, and then OKRs. Okay. So for example, how does that? That's on an annual process? You have a year long, so you have a year to achieve those objectives.
Yes, but we also have OKRs. Like that's on a very high level, looking at the full 1 year. But we create our OKRs every quarter.
Okay. And they're the same OKRs or different OKRs? Or?
The subset of the bigger OKRs, right?
Okay, cool. So what you're trying to do is be very clear about the direction of travel and let that sort of percolate down. Okay.
That's
and
correct.
how long does that process take?
It depends every year. It depends of how much time it takes. It definitely takes few weeks to a month probably.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. And that seems, just from what you're talking about, seems quite directive, quite top down. Is that the case, or can ideas come from anywhere?
I know it's not that it's very top down. The overall goals come from the top, but at the same time, if you have new ideas, whether it's on the product side or on the marketing side, there's always a leeway of how do we achieve those things, and innovations many times come from the bottom.
Okay, so the goal is more about this is what needs to happen. How you make it happen is
exactly.
Okay, interesting. How do you sort of who's involved in this process at all levels? Do you just all lock yourselves in a room, or is it done by the leadership team? Or
so another thing, like it starts with the top, and then each of the department heads, say marketing head, product head, customer service, all those, they decide their own goals, and then they work with their teams to decide their goals.
Okay. So it's a relatively standing planning cycle. So Florian, I imagine things are very different. I'd love to hear sort of how you're doing it at the moment.
Yeah. So we have 2 levels of planning. We have a country-specific planning, and we have a global planning. Because we provide a payroll and HRIS solution, and the payroll solution is country-specific because law in each country, are very different. So for this country planning, so it's communicated only for the country, and it is made by a local team. Our Jet Lang masters that we spoke before, they are able to modify and to code new laws very easily in the country. So it's country specific. So let's not talk about this part, which is quite easy to align, but let's speak about the international planning, which is for all the company and which is super important for all countries because it will impact all countries. So we have quarterly roadmap, and we just started last quarter to introduce OKR. So it's super new for us. So today it's not super powerful or useful because we keep on this format of a quarterly keynote to all the company. And how do we construct those quarterly roadmaps for the next quarter? So we have all those exchanges and all those processes, feedbacks from countries in each specific team. They provide their roadmap. Then we merge roadmaps from different countries. We merge feedbacks which are common between the different ones. Then we size, of course, each one. We are obliged to find an international solution. So, for example, if there is a need which is German specific, it's forbidden for us to find a German specific solution. So we will find a solution, no matter if it's used by one country or 50. So maybe it will be used only by one country and Germany, but we find an international solution to be sure that if tomorrow we have 50 more countries, we will not have to maintain German code to reproduce it. So it will be made for it. So we have this quarterly communication to all the company with different countries, and we don't engage on more long-term subjects. We just give visibility to what will be discussed for the rest of the year, but there is no engagement on it, and we iterate a lot because I think we are quite small on it, so there are a lot of discussions during each quarter to modify the next quarter.
I definitely see it. In smaller companies I work with, it's a lot more discussive and a lot less formal, and it's a lot more iterative, and then at some point that breaks. And I think we're at the point now where it's starting to break, that just solving things with informal conversations is now starting to become too painful.
Right.
And where we need to start thinking now about sort of a different type of process. So I think we've just finished our quarterly planning at the end of the month for this month. So we now have clear roadmaps for each team for each month in the next quarter. So what the teams are delivering each month, and then we've now trying to push that further. So we haven't nailed quarter 4, but we've got here are the sort of 4 areas or 5 areas we want to explore. So by the time we hopefully get there, we've explored them a bit more. I think the larger we grow, the further out we're going to have to push that horizon. But it's quite interesting. I think the balance is how do we, like you say, how do you include ideas from everywhere, especially from the bottom up? I think you've got your country teams, which is your voice of the customer, as it were, and that's coming in and really central. I think that's fantastic, and we do the same with our product teams. It'd be interesting, Tarun, to see sort of how do you get the voice of the customer into into your planning cycle in terms of this is the customer saying this is what I want solved, or this is the most painful thing for me.
Yeah. So we like the process depends on department to department. A lot of departments are customer facing. So for example, when I was on the product marketing side, one of the OKRs for me and my team was we'll go out and interview customers. We'll try to get feedback every week from the customers. We'll talk to the sales, support, account management, all those teams to get the customer feedback, but indirectly as well. So those are some of the ways we had those things already built into our OKRs. Now I've moved into customer engagement, customer experience. So now, again, the process remains, the questions change a lot, definitely. But at the same time, now we have a process. We are going out to the customers regularly, every week, every bi-weekly, trying to get the feedback in terms of like if there are OKRs, here are our hypotheses. From those hypotheses, what are some of the questions we want to get answers to it? So we go out and talk to the customers, get the feedback, and then think about here are some of the things we need to put on our roadmap.
Okay, no, that makes it. I think that's really interesting. I think how you incorporate people's sort of desires and hopes for what they want to build versus what the customer wants, because engineers will want to use some sort of generally trying to try and experiment with some leading edge technology. Sometimes that's at odds with what customers want. Designers want to build beautiful experiences. Sometimes the customers just want something that works and is simple rather than something that's beautiful. And business people want stuff that generates money, and sometimes there's a trade-off there with sort of how do you find that space where you win, the customer wins, and sort of balancing all those things. I think this is the great place, or why it's great to be in product, because you have to make those choices. You have to make the trade-off or the decision between how much or how much you can give the customer without making your business unsustainable, how much you can prioritize, design versus delight versus usability, and sort of how much you can pay technical debt versus, getting something out on time to hit deadlines. So I think it's a super interesting role. So let's talk about communication now. So how do you help your entire organization align around what you're trying to do? And I imagine this is going to be so different. So Florian, let's go with you first. I think it's going to be sort of simpler and shorter. Like you sort of mentioned your sort of quarterly, I think you mentioned sort of a quarterly process. How do you make sure that every day people are looking, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I know what's important. This is what I'm going to do.
So we have this quarterly keynote with all the company where we announce what will be released and why do we do that for the next quarter, but it's super short term. So in this quarterly keynote, so most of the schedule is on this topic next quarter, but we begin with always the long-term vision, because we have new page features that arrived, in the past weeks. So we begin with this long-term vision. Where do we want to go? And then we precise what we will do. There is this, we know that one of the biggest challenge is the why are we doing that and when are we doing those things, because we have so many things, to do for the coming years. It's super important for us to align everyone on why are we doing that at this time, because it becomes more and more difficult with more and more countries to understand for them why is this prioritization made, that before that. And so this why are we doing that? It's evolving. And so it's not only it's not only for the product. So it's it's a challenge for every team at PayFit to explain the why are we doing that? Where do we go? And what is the long term of PayFit? Because in marketing, that's a big challenge, to see to prospects to tell them, okay, we will go here. It's the same for sales, of course, for customers every day. But so this why and which impact what and how we will do things is super important. And we are currently working hand in hand between product and marketing, to see how we are gonna make PayFitter not align, not just on a product keynote and understanding, but having a global vision on a better vision on what we want to do when. So it's a more long term. So it's not only product, it's product and marketing. We have workshops on it, but the most important thing is the why, and we have already introduced in onboarding. In the onboarding of every new PayFitter, half a day on this question. So why are we doing that? Where do we want to go? Because otherwise, it's so difficult for, we observed that it's so difficult for PayFitters, to see the link between those short-term goals and where we will go if they don't have the why. So I know it will continue, evolving, and we will iterate a lot on it, but yeah, I hope
that makes sense. So when you say planning, you're looking in the future. How far is that? Is that sort of end of next year? Is that 5 years? Is that 10 years?
It's like 3 years. It's 3 years because I think it's quite clear what the product will look like in 3 years. But so it's quite easy, to see like features who will be introduced, but it's not the most important. What is super important is the why and how will we do that. Because for a new PayFitters, who didn't have thousands of feedbacks from customers, it's super complex to see, okay, why will we do that if you didn't have all those exchanges. So I think it's quite clear where we will go in 3 years, but the story around it, to have everyone aligned in every country is super important, because as you can imagine, when we will open Italy in the coming months, when there will be 10 in the country, it's super different from France, where we will have more than 300 people. So and they have to align on the roadmap to understand it. So the story around it is super important. The why around it is super important, and so it's why we are focusing on this topic.
So you have a strong onboarding, and you have these stories that you tell yourselves to sort of suggest what's important, and as you explained, the why. I think. Yeah. How do you maintain that over time? It can't just be onboarding, that you've got to have some sort of reinforcement mechanism. How do you do that?
So it's during product keynotes. During product keynote, as I said, we have quarterly planning, but we have also a small part at the beginning. Repeating, okay, why and what maybe if there had been some evolutions on the long-term vision. So the 3-year vision, we will focus on those evolutions. So to be sure that yes, okay, new PayFitters have this presentation during their onboarding, but on a quarterly basis, they have this repetition. They have this, if they had been some evolutions on this strategy, they will hear about it, and we hope that everyone will be aligned even after 2 weeks or after 2 years at PayFit.
Cool, good. Tarun, I imagine that works in a small company where you can spend that time, and I imagine Florian can attend all of the onboardings, where I think that might be quite difficult for you. Is how do you align such a large company around what's important and doing that?
Yeah. I think one thing that I've always used in all the companies is, I'll share a couple of best practices that I've used. One is, I think we talked about the OKRs. Each and every starts with the company, then the departments, then goes to the managers, and then goes to individuals. So each and every person knows what are their OKRs for this particular quarter. From there on, one practice I use is, and we share all these in a wiki, so anybody can go and see whether marketing goals are aligned with the product, with the customer success, all those things. The second thing I do is looking at, I call it the 3P: plan, progress, and problem.
Okay.
So every week, everybody in my team, they share in terms of a plan, what are they planning to do next week to meet their OKRs. Progress is what we did this week, which helped us. And problem is if they have hit a roadblock and they want to escalate, this is what's happening. And if any times we see a particular problem, specifically I see a particular problem which is coming up for my team, where are the places where I can help the team. This is way I've used this process now in previous 3 companies I've worked with. I think overall it helps everybody align from small tactical stuff, which is very important to get to complete the OKRs. And you don't see, you start with the OKR at the start of the quarter, and towards the end of the quarter, there's always a gap. Like, how do you want to make sure that these things are getting executed? So I think like these 3 Ps help me and my team to make sure that we are aligned.
Cool. And sort of how often do you do that? Is it every 2
week.
weeks? Every week?
Every Friday. Every Friday. And it's not a lot of work. It's very much like everybody can think about 1 or 2 bullets that I'm planning to do next week. 1 or 2 bullets that I did like this week. And if there is any problem, they can share. And it's not like each and every time you will have a plan or a progress or a problem. And sometimes you don't have, and that's fine. But once you have this, you share it with the whole team. There is a wiki, you put all those things. It's very transparent. Anybody can go and see. And in many ways or forms, it also helps other people to build on top of what you are doing. So if you are having a particular problem and somebody sees that a particular problem, I'll definitely, as a manager, can help the person. But many times somebody else also comes in and says, hey, we tried this. I had a particular problem. Here's how we can solve it.
Cool. I think that's really interesting. I think we use something. It's the same thing. We just name it differently. So we have a stand up every morning where all the team leads get together with the CEO. We could do that because we're roughly the same size as Florian's, and they go, "It's all good," or "I need some help." And then we know that within 24 hours we're going to solve every problem we've got. Hopefully within 24 hours. Yeah. And then every 2 weeks the teams go. A little bit like Florian said in terms of the sort of keynote, we call it a review. This is what we built. It's going live. This is what we're building next. If anybody's got a problem, that's the time they speak up. So you don't have to teams don't have to go around with a begging bowl going and say, please, sir, can you sign off my product? Change it. And as soon as anything's changed, have to recirculate it. Yeah. It's okay. This is going live unless anybody holds up their hand. This is what I'm working on next, unless anybody's got your hand. And then every morning at 9:30, we can go, okay, all good or not, and then we can jump on it. The other thing we've started doing actually is at the start of the meeting every 9:30 is showing the one graph that matters to us the most at the moment, which is active customers. This is how it's going. This is where we want it to be. Obviously, this is where the CEO wants it to be, even higher. And that really focuses every day. The team sort of get a sort of a focus on it. You have to be careful. You don't want to push it too hard. You don't want to you want to make sure there's no sort of counter or negative behaviors going on. But reminding people of what the goals are, I think, is quite helpful.
I think that one point I would add is in my previous company, the business was extremely transactional. So it was a low touch, high volume kind of a business. And so in that kind of a business, I think we used to use a daily 10-minute stand-up. So we used to run a lot of A/B tests in a high transaction kind of a business. And we wanted to see the tests that we ran, say, yesterday or day before yesterday, how are they performing? So in that 10 or 15 minutes, all we used to talk about was quickly, where are the test results? Secondly, if we need to make any change, should we? And third is aligning everybody. These are the 2 or 3 next level of changes or tests we want to do and try. Those are, I think, like quick 10, 15 minutes meeting, especially in a business which is high transaction where you have to learn, you're learning every day. Those are extremely important. But again, it depends on what kind of business you have. If it is extremely high enterprise kind of a business, those kind of meetings would not be very useful because things don't change that fast. If it is a high transactional business, it makes so much sense to have those kind of meetings.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that sort of cottons onto something. I think we've got about 10 minutes left. I think we should come on to, if we start thinking about some top tips for execution for the end, but I'd like to spend sort of the last 10 minutes on, how do you change the plan? You've got a plan, you're sort of executing it, and then something else comes in, whether it's, the issues with Huawei, with Google, the trade sanctions and Google stops their access, their access, these things always happen, and we need to be able to change direction, either because of a threat that's materialized or because there's a bigger opportunity. We've talked about planning. How do you then be agile, and how do you adapt? Florian, again, let's go to you again. You're small. I think you'll be able to change quite quickly. Opportunity or something comes in. How do you change?
Okay, so changing on a daily, if you have to modify the roadmap on the day, it's only because you have a hotfix in production, and everyone is aware of that in engineering, product, and product teams. So it's only for hotfix in production. But let's imagine that you see a big opportunity, a new one. What we try to do is starting it the next sprint. So we try, to keep on the sprint, because we know that especially for engineering teams, it's so frustrating for them, to modify. So we try to have this rule. Okay, in the sprint, we try to keep on it. Only for regressions and hotfix in production, we will modify the roadmap, but otherwise we will wait for the next sprint. And so for the next sprint, how can we make this move? We can make this move only if a product manager, product designer, and engineering manager, understand why we do that. So it's not me or a VP telling, okay, we have to modify that. We need to let's align. Is it so important? Is it more important than what we have made? And those people, product manager, product designer, and engineers, they need. We hire people that are ready to move their roadmap if it's better for the business. So there is no problem for them to stop a work or a plan that they had for the past 10 months. We don't care if it's better for the business. And so with this, today, everyone is aware of this system, and everyone agrees on that. So then the challenge is, having all the engineering team understanding it, all the people impacted by the move of the original plan aware of that. But today, I think because we are quite small, and communication even between different countries are quite easy, it's easy to align everyone on that. So I know it will be a challenge, like being a one person in the company, but it's easy to align and having people understand why we did that.
I think it's easy if you've got this culture of change and you're small. I think it's easy because you can go around and talk to everybody who's affected individually and say, look, even as the CEO or as me as the head of product, I can go around and say, look, I'm sorry about this. This is what's, I can do that because we're really small. I think the challenge will be if you're much, much larger, you just can't do that. So how do you change and not have too negative impact on people? Tarun, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. It's a very interesting question. And I think problems or change of plans can come from many different directions. And also some of the changes are small. For example, I was talking about the plan, progress, and problem. So some of the things can be just a local department getting impacted or few people getting impacted. We thought this will take, say, 2 weeks. It's going to take 4 weeks. We have to plan. I call it a localized issue or localized problem. And we work on a triage. But many times it can be also a big change. For example, it's coming from an industry-wide change. And at that point of time, I think we as a company, we communicate almost, we have platforms in which we communicate with the company. We have town halls and we have monthly, quarterly, weekly meetings kind of a thing. From there on, we share those kind of updates and try to work on a plan, how to minimize the negative impact. If there is a negative impact, how do you minimize the negative impact of that particular change? I'm unable to hear you.
Sorry, that's my fault. I went on mute. So I think thinking through in advance that people find change difficult, even if you're sort of going out with it, and sort of going into something saying, okay, this change will affect people. How do we sort of mitigate it? I think the biggest thing you can do. And I think it always comes, for me, it always comes back to the why. If you're able, like Florian said, if you're able to clearly articulate why this is the right thing to do, even if somebody's just spent 10 months doing something, people are a lot more forgiving than if they don't know about
Yep.
that, and they just sort of go, okay, my 9 months work is just sunk cost down the drain, and somebody's calling it sunk cost, and I don't even know what that means. So I think that's
Yeah. Yep.
So I think we've got sort of 5 minutes left. So let's talk about some sort of top tips or any advice that we've got for sort of how do you stick to the plan. So let's go back to, you've got a plan, you want to execute well, sort of use some sort of life pro tips about sticking to the plan. How do you do that? How do you do it, Florian?
So one small tip which changed so many things is moving from features with dates to just features released during the quarter. So it was a big change because engaging only on the quarter when it will be released, it's very different from saying it will be released by the end of April. And so it's a huge change. And so it's easier then to modify the roadmap, concerning the last question, when you didn't engage. And so when you plan your quarter, you plan like a 80% quarter capacity. So you know that you will be able to add new things or to be able to react without having to speak to everyone in the company. So first thing is we never engage on dates. We did at the beginning, but it was a huge change. And then yes, I think this bi-weekly meetings that we have with all product managers, all product designers, and engineering managers on their own are so important for the feedbacks. I think it's very small things, but
nice. No, these are great pro tips. Tarun?
Yeah. So the question was more around how do you ensure that you execute the plan?
Yeah, so just any tips or tricks you've learned about sort of sticking to the plan or pushing the plan forwards, or
yeah, I'll answer that, but I'm also a big believer in starting with the customer and work your way backward. So at any point of time, if the customer requirements change because of any reason, and they do change at this point of time, be agile enough to ensure that not just thinking about here's what we discussed, here's what we agreed. If there is a big trend, be agile enough. I think that's key. But at the same time, I think one thing we always think about or get towards is sticking to the plan is thinking about testing and learning continuously. So what we believe is start with something small and test it out, whether it's working out, build an MVP kind of a thing, measure, fail fast, and then scale up, and then go moving forward. And you have very much like a process, a baby steps of you are saying the things are moving in this direction. Now we need to scale up versus just scaling up and then realize after 6 or 7 months, oh, we are failing. That costs a lot of resources and also a lot of communication issues overall. And I think a lot of these things happen if you create the right culture inside the company. One of the things I always say is everyone wants to be a valued member of a winning team on an inspiring mission. This is something that I learned from one of my previous co-founders, one of my founders. And so building a team culture where you actually encourage people to share the problems early on and making sure people are collaborating and you have a focus towards a goal and solving a particular problem. Start with the customers, test and learn continuously, and creating the right culture. I think those are some of the things which help. But apart from that, we already talked about the 3 Ps, OKRs. I think those are the things, tactical things you always use.
I think the 3 Ps. I think that was super helpful and insightful. Yeah, I think for me the culture bit resonates as well. Especially in a startup with Florian, we hire people who make stuff happen rather than wait for stuff to happen. And that we look for that and we hire for that specifically. So we generally don't hire from big banks or from big organizations because they generally don't have that mindset of extreme ownership. This is mine. Nobody else is going to push this forwards unless I push this forwards. So from us, it sort of starts with the hiring. It sort of adds up with the sort of the culture. We talk about moving the solution forwards every day. Doesn't matter if you move it forwards a millimeter or a meter. If every day you just move it forwards a bit, you beat everybody else, because everybody else isn't doing that. And I think we like to use the sort of analogy, and we use this a lot, of a glacier. You're just going down the hill. It doesn't matter what's in the way, whether it's whether it's trees, whether it's a forest. You slowly, whether it's a mountain, you just slowly every day just moving it forwards. And through doing that, we think it's sort of more deliberate, more considered, and it just moves the problem forward. And using the stories, Florian using the stories that we tell ourselves to sort of to encourage this focus on execution, which is something we hold very, very highly. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tarun and Florian. It's been fantastic. We've sort of explored the difference between sort of larger companies that have just been acquired in terms of the process, the planning, and the communication. We've gone down to the sort of the super scrappy startup who's still going to double and scale over the next year, which would be super exciting. We'll start experiencing the pains that we're experiencing, start experiencing the pains Tarun's experiencing. But hopefully, through explaining this, we've sort of energized ourselves and heard about ideas and tips and tricks in order to help scaling, help delivering value as well. Start with the customer, the 3 Ps, the culture, having these regular meetings where you touch base and sort of and move the idea forwards, and talks about structure and about how to move structure. So thank you very much. I've learned a huge amount. I think it's now time to hand over to Mary, to say to finalize and say some stuff about Scaleup Valley. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Wow, so much learning in one episode. Amazing. Thank you, Tarun. Thank you, Max. Thank you, Florian. I hope our Scaleup community enjoy this show. So if you like it, please press the button below. You can listen these and other podcasts on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. So please, thank you. We have a final code, so hire to make it happen, from Max. And thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.